Rania Qawasma is a Palestinian-American architect working in the areas of social equity, affordable housing, and community-based design projects. Rania earned her master's degree in design studies, sustainable design from Boston Architectural College in the USA in 2016. She is a project manager at Cost Development, an affordable micro-housing company since 2016. Rania is the founder and president of Darna, a community-based organization which was founded in the year 2020. Darna helps forcibly displaced families heal, adjust, and build their new communities by using design thinking, providing the tools, resources, and methods that empower them to improve their lives and livelihood. Rania works also and very active with local and international organizations, tackling the displacement crisis and advocating for refugees. She is part of the International Architecture for Refugees organization and founded the Architecture for Refugees USA Foundation or Society with the vision to engage architects, designers, and community members to raise awareness to the issue of displacement. Her paper today is entitled Decolonizing Architecture, Preserving Indigenous Identity through Imagining and Placemaking from Turtle Island in North America to Palestine. Let us all welcome Ms. Rania Qawasma to present her paper.
Thank you for the introduction. This is a lot. Like, I'm not all of this. I am, but like, thank you all for coming and listening to architecture session and our work. We're not usually in academia, so our work is a little bit different realm. Today, like, I'm gonna take you through a journey of, like, in architecture. You're not gonna see one project. You're not gonna go into technical. You're gonna experience architecture with me, and I hope, like, by the end of this session, you feel like each one of you has a little bit of an architect inside of you, because, like, two things, like, those are disclaimers. The first one, I think, like, the field and the profession of architecture, this is like a brand new kind of like a colonial idea of like really having a certain people with power that they hold, that they can design and really change how people they live. Like, we hold the power somehow, architects, like, we don't tell you, but we do hold the power that our design can really change the lives of people. We can transform people's lives. We can work with communities. We can create sustainable and social and equitable places for people to live and thrive. And we can segregate people, and we can create and build homes and institutions and cities that really, like, divide communities and create the powerful and the powerless and incarcerate people. All of this we can do as architects. This is right now how architecture, it's been defined. But I want to, like, for me, I want to take that to a little bit before. Architecture's been there since we inhabited this earth. So, and it's always like, for me, I see architecture that this is our relationship with nature. This is how we learned from within, like, this whole ecosystem. We learned from animals. We learned from the places that we inhabited, how we use the natural materials there and how we build homes. And it started like this. It started like we want to live into this earth and how we can shelter ourselves. So this is how architecture began. And the people that they built and created and imagined and, like, created their own homes and the places they lived in as societies. These people, sometimes we call them master builders, sometimes we call, like, they have different names. They were not always called architects. Like, I hope one day, like, I can claim that I'm a master builder. I'm not right now. I'm still, like, using that term of I'm an architect. I can design. Still, like, I have the tools and the technical skills to create those spaces, but I hope that we can get to the point that architecture become the work of community. That, yes, there are people that they hold the knowledge and certain skills and technical skills to work with communities, that they can create those dreams and imaginations that, like, transform them into, like, an actual building or structures. However, like, this is a work of community. The other disclaimer before, like, I start, it's my paper, it's titled Decolonizing Architecture, preserving indigenous identity through imagination and placemaking from Turtle Island to Palestine. And that the other disclaimer, I do not claim that I'm an expert on the indigenous like history, and like in North America and Turtle Island, there are a lot of people, indigenous people, that they can talk a lot. They know their culture and their history. So for me, it's an honor to like look at similarities and things that we experience both here as Palestinians and the indigenous people or the First Nation on Turtle Island. And the other part that I lived, like half of my life, I lived it in from like between Palestine and other Arab countries. The other half, it was in the US, and it was an area like I lived within a community that I know their struggle, and I learned more about what does it mean that the word indigenous community. The first time I learned that word, it was in the US, being with the Duwamish community in Seattle, start like working more and volunteering and working with indigenous activists like in Seattle area, in the Northwest, in New Mexico and other places. So like for me, like talking about those similarities or taking you that to the journey that I experienced as well through the projects and the activities that we did, like in both areas. So those are two disclaimers I wanted like just to make sure that even when I'm talking about architecture and I'm an architect, like I wanted like to pass through that this idea of architecture, like each one of us has that passion inside of us, but we don't know, maybe some of us. So starting, I might be moving around, and I might be like standing up right now. I'm gonna be standing up so you can guys see more. So I am starting that journey, gonna introduce you to this little young girl right here. This is a picture at the shores of Benghazi, Libya. And this is like one of the few pictures that I have for myself where I was born. And thank you. This is at the sea. And I lived a little bit of my childhood and toddler lives at the sea. Like my family's house was there, but I don't remember any of it. I don't have a memory of that place. And in fact, I did not see a sea for a long time after that. So that picture reminding me that relationship with the coastal area, and like there is a spaces here and there are places here, and I lived there, but it was a reminder, like just understanding this through a picture. It was not until I saw the sea the first time, and I was a teenager after that. And that was like a briefly, like just seeing the coastal from far away, and then like having that experience of being close to a water, like a body of water. That was like when I moved to the US, and when I lived in the Northwest area, so it's all like an ocean. So understanding, like for me, that the sea was part of me when I was born, yes, but like that, and there are certain things inside of us, like we carry it in, and it just comes out like later on. It might not be at the moment, but this is something that we carry through our lives. So this young girl, she did not know that she's gonna become an architect. She moved around, and like while she was like growing up, that her relationship with homes and spaces was like always growing, and always like this idea of like it captures her wherever I moved with my family. It's the understanding of where people live, why these people live in this situation, the injustices that around, like why this area it's designed and built this way, why other people they have the privilege to live a better life. This was always like part of my my like upbringing. Part of the other, like next part of that journey, like some of the group right here, we went on the trip. We went all the way to هضبة الجولان, the Golan Heights. We went through, like it was a history lesson a little bit. We've seen a lot of structures and building that like talked about the history and our existence within like the area, and like we've been here for thousands of years. We've been talking about this a lot, and it's true. Our history, it is shown and it's presented by these old cities and like the places, the stones that there are there for thousands of years. However, there is something else that like I'm more interested in showing, which is this is the area a little bit before the occupation in 1948, the colonization of Palestine. People, they were still building. So like even if we're gonna be walking and showing and saying these are houses that they've been there for thousands of years, for hundreds of years, even when like the industrial revolution around the world and like westernizing of like how people they build and people they discovered concrete and like they start like looking of different ways of building, that was across the area as well. That was not a Western thing. People they learned and they came back, they traveled and they came back. They built homes. And they built homes in the early 1900s. They built homes in 1920, 1930, 1940, 1948. So they were built homes that they are similar to homes that they were in certain places in Europe, in other places in the US. So our history, it's not only in the old buildings and the old cities. Our histories, they were like neighborhoods and streets that our families, they lived in and they were like taken away from them. This is my grandparents' house in what it's called West Jerusalem, which is like, it's Jerusalem 1948. I'm not gonna say this again because I don't like myself when I say that. So it's in the part that it was occupied in 1948. This is on the main street of al-Khalil al-Quds highway, Hebron Jerusalem highway, and this was the street that defined where is West Jerusalem and East Jerusalem. So my grandparents' house was like exactly on the street. They were forced out of their house. My great-grandfather actually built this house. So it's not my grandfather. It's like we're going a little bit back. It's my great-grandfather built a house. It's built with stone and concrete. So this is a modern, this is like introducing that there were homes that they were built with like modern or new kind of like materials. Like the way that house, it was built like two structures. The top part, this is like built later on. This is a settler roof garden or like the settler roof part of the house. Going through like Jerusalem, like when before the closure of Palestine with the apartheid wall, before like all the checkpoints, for us like or for me, when we used to like go and visit my grandparents summertime, always like my grandfather will take us, we know that we cannot stop here, that's another thing. You use the highway, we used to drive through it, you cannot stop. This is all a settler neighborhood right now. So even for my grandfather, he knows he's a couple of meters away from his house that he cannot claim, he cannot knock on the door, he cannot say that this is my house. So for us, it was traveling through, going from Khalil to Ramallah, going from Khalil to Jerusalem, and it's on the right-hand side. And my grandfather, he used to play this game with us that whenever I'm gonna get close to the area, we did not know the car is driving, it's speeding, so we know that it's gonna be exactly 20 seconds from the moment you see the house, you turn your face, you look back, and then it's gone, like you don't see it anymore. So you need to print that in your memory. This house, it has to be printed in your memory. So for me, it was that game that he's gonna, I need to drink. It gets a little bit emotional when I talk about this. He will count to 20 or 30, it means like back, so his will be like 20, 19, whatever, and when he gets to 1, we need immediately like to start looking. This is the time for like nobody's talking. You're all gonna look at the other side to see the house. So for me, that was like a practice of every time I start like knowing when I go there that I need to capture something from the house. It starts like building that picture in my brain that, okay, there is this semicircle balcony that it's there. The windows, they look like this. The painting, it's like this. It's like I'm imagining that place that it's my grandfather, but every time like I go back and I add one item and I draw it and like I talk about it. So it's gonna be either like visual or something that it's written, but like printing the memory of this house in my mind. That was built in the early 1900s. So that's one example. The other one, both sides of my family, they were displaced in 1948. My mom's side of the family, they lived in Egypt and Gaza for a while. And like a year before 1967, they were allowed to come back, so they went back to Hebron. And my grandfather at that time, he was done with college, he wants to do something, so he built this hotel. This is a hotel built in the early 60s. It's like right now we're talking, and for a lot of people who know a little bit of architecture, this is a mid-century style. This is something that it was common and famous in the 50s and 60s across Europe and the United States. And that was built in Hebron. My family, they decided they want to build something for the community. For them, there was the first hotel that it was built in Hebron. It's called the Nahr al-Khalid, the Eternal River. That's the name that's written right there. And this is one of the few pictures that I have of the hotel. In 1967, when Israel occupied the rest of Palestine, the Israelis, the soldiers, they came and they occupied the first thing, my grandparents' hotel. They kicked everybody out, and at that time, my grandparents, they lived around the area. It was like a small hotel with their homes around the area. They were kicked out. The soldiers lived in for 6 months. Then they brought in the first settlers that right now lived in Khalil. Those are the first settlers that they came there. They stayed at this hotel for almost 8 months, and then they moved them. And when they built Kiryat Arba, this is the first settlement, and the biggest settlement actually in the south. This hotel has a memory. Right now, it's gone. After, in the first Intifada, the Israelis, they claimed people, they throw rocks from the gardens of the hotel. So they came with bulldozers. They removed this whole area. And this is for the community. Inside this gate, there are gardens, places, coffee shops. People, they sit down, they hang out. I have memories and memories of my childhood playing outside, playing hide and seek. We're trying to figure out where are areas that we can hide, that nobody, every time will find something within that space, within that structure. Now, sometimes, somebody might come and say that these old homes, they might belong to you, they might not belong to you. We can contest, our families that have been here 3,000 years ago, all of that. You could, even if you know the truth, there is people that they can challenge this. Nobody can challenge me with this. This is my memories, my experience, it's my family's history. This is recent too. This has been built 1967. It's been demolished. Right now, there is a small structure in the back that's related to this hotel. This is so our history, or what's been happening with the spaces that we lived in, our architecture, the way that we claim that what we can build and create. This is not only the old cities, which is, it's the other one, it's true. But we have beyond that. We have places that we've been forced out, and it's been demolished and destroyed. And these places, it means memories, it means laughters, it means joy, it means it's not only a couple of stones. And again, speaking, this is a picture that I shows it talks about the same idea of we were there, not only we've been still there. It's not an old city, it's not an old structure, challenging that Palestinians are indigenous or not. This is not something that we want to go and trace it back. If you find in which is I'm not saying that this is wrong, but find remains of who's been here. This is something that people lived a life like any other places. They were designing and building, and they had roads, and they had shops, and they had homes, and this has all been happening. This has all been something that you can see it anywhere. If you imagine this one, it stayed the way it is. Right now, when you come and see it, it's like you're visiting any other city. It never went through the destruction that our cities they went through. This is Jaffa. In 1940, yes. This is Jaffa in 1940. And I know, right now, you go and see Jaffa, and you see other buildings, but just thinking of this black and white picture at this time, that right before that invasion of the European settlers, Israeli soldier, whatever we're gonna call them. This is how people they live. And this is going to give us like this is what we do, architects, actually. We like to play with maps and like talk about this. And these maps that I'm going to go through with you, like just give you an idea of like how we look at this on the ground. Those are provided by Beit Salem. So like it's a public record. Everybody can go and see them. This is not something that it's like I'm bringing here. This is something that it's been really researched and documented for a long time. If you look at just how like the existence of these settlers within our country, within Palestine, starting from 1918 to right now, this is 2017, but we can say right now it's closer. This one is going to be like more and more black, but the idea of taking spaces, the idea of dispersing like the Palestinian society, the idea of like taking land over and over. This is like I'm zooming into the West Bank, and look again like into the West Bank when you see the green one. This is all the Palestinian under Israeli occupation. So even that part of the West Bank, all the green areas, those are either Israeli settlements or like Area C, or like it's totally like 100% under Israeli control. That's how we look at cities and towns. This is how people they're gonna connect with each other. This is how people they're gonna think of like how we're gonna build our cities and our communities. Beside like that control, the apartheid wall, that you have the whole West Bank in a prison. Like they're all, it's bordered in with an actual wall. And again, I'm not going in numbers, and like this is something like I know that like all of you may know this more than me, and like some of you can search that, but like just giving a visual idea of like how is it that right now that impact of the occupation of Palestine on a building scale. Those are the checkpoints that like you've seen, I'm sure, a number of them, like and our people here, they know most of them, and everybody has a story with like these checkpoints. And now, so from 1917 to right now, this is what we're gonna have as results. We have, it's a 75 years of occupation. Yes, we have 5.4 million refugees that they live in 58 refugee camps, recognized refugee camps between Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, West Bank, and Gaza. Those are people that right now, this is the result of that occupation. We have over 530 villages that they've been demolished. They're gone. Those villages, that's not like, it's not villages. Those are homes. Those are thousands of homes. Those are thousands of families. Those are thousands of stories and memories. So like when we think about it, and when we say there are 500 villages that they've been destroyed, this is not just a number. This is like you can take one village and you can see that every house has a story. That's another thing, which is like this is big part of like the urban planning and like how you gentrified a place after you demolish that. This is going to be a two-layered picture. This is Hayy al-Manshiyya in Jaffa. And if you look at this picture, this is the old one. This is how it is right now. Over there on the back, like on the horizon, those are the high rises of what's called Tel Aviv right now. And Tel Aviv, it's considered right now the main city, and Jaffa, it's a district of that city. So like destroy the city, claim part of the city, gentrify the people in the city, and this is what you end up with. This is what I call it. It is the tale of two cities. Another result of what been happening in the past 75 years and maybe 100 years, I'm sure like a lot of you heard of the village Lifta, And I like some of the people that like, and I know like a lot, they did research on Lifta as well. Lifta, it's a village and district of Al-Quds, Jerusalem, that it was not demolished, but people, they were forced out of their homes. And this is the only village right now that it's left around Jerusalem that it is frozen in times. The houses, they're still there. The people that they lived in these houses, they come and try to visit the area, and they've been fighting over and over to come back to their homes. And it looks, it's just breathtaking when you look at it, because it's the actual village is still there. The homes, they are still there. And there is like a claim, like one thing, like if you see on the top right, those are settlements right there. Settlements, they're viewing this village. This village, it's like it's a strategic place between Jerusalem and Jaffa. And the Department of Antiquities, and I think the Department of Planning, the Israelis in Jerusalem, they've been trying to create projects here. Some projects, it's been talked about and approved, like hotels. Some of it, it's high, what do you call it? A residential area, commercial area, and that's the worst for me. The leftist environmentalist architects in Israel, they're trying to preserve that, because they're saying that we need to preserve it, we need to preserve this village, because there is some ancestor connection between Israel and this village. It's right there. So this is part of who we are and existent as Israeli. So even the ones that they want to keep it and preserve it, it's preserved for like their own story. I'm taking you right now all the way across to the Turtle Island, what it's been called Turtle Island. And somebody asked me the question why it's called that. Before, of course, like the first arrival and invasion of the Europeans to these two continents. And like this is especially, I'm choosing the area of like what is it right now, United States, because this is what I can speak more of, and I've been working with people over there, and I've seen something. I did not bring both continents, indigenous people that have been inhabiting the whole area for thousands of years. This is how it looked like. Forget those lines of these states. Every single place, area over there, there were tribes, there were people there. They lived within that, and this is something about the United States, that you have multiple, like different geographical areas with different climates. So you have coastal areas, you have desert, you have plains, you have mountains, and each one of them, the tribes that they lived in, they consider themselves, and they know that they are part of the land, they are part of earth, they are the ones who they know that when they go and build something, it's like they're taking permission from earth and from the inhabitants to live that life. So they consider themselves part of this whole area. And Turtle Island, this is one of the stories that are like one of there were like stories passed on from generations to another in different tribes. What is the origin of the first man, of the first people? How did they come to the area? And one of them, which is I love the most, this is the one that I'm kind of like, there are a lot of them that's related to element, but this one, Sky Woman fell from the sky, and it was a watery earth. There was no land. And she landed on the back of a turtle with the help of some animals, beavers and other animals. And that back of the turtle, this is what become the United States right now. This is Turtle Island. This is where the people lived all their lives. This is how they created their communities. This is how they built. And right now, like I'm going to go more into architecture, because this is like the real deal right here. So when you look at the homes and the structures and the communities that they were built by the First Nation, all of it depends on where they are, how they can work with the climate that they're in, how they can, like, the climate is one thing, and what is it that they're doing? Some of them, they live in areas that they know that they're hunters, and they need to live in areas that they are somehow nomads. They're not going to stay there for a long time. They build the teepees. Those are in the bottom right there left. They're built with wooden sticks. They use the buffalo skins to cover that. And those, like, if you're thinking a little bit more as designers, those are like like a green, sustainable way of living. They have ventilation and air within the top over there. It's open, so they know a way of like how to ventilate air. They have an easy, like those sticks are strong enough to hold the tent, but they're light enough for the buffaloes or like for their animals to carry them and move with them. The buffalo skin, it's part of them using every single thing in the animals that they're hunting, so they don't waste anything. So there is a level of sophistication of understanding like how they build their homes. It was not just some random things that those are backward people, they have no civilization, they did not know how to build their home. They intentionally, they thought of these homes, they thought of these communities, they thought where to place these tents or teepees, because they know that each one of them, when it has a relationship with like how the wind is coming and how the wind is going to be going from one place to another. So even the science of like designing and being like really an architect, this is something people have done. They know that. The one on top, those are two kinds that like they're different areas. There's a structure called long houses. Long houses, those are built by like the indigenous communities, some of the tribes, and those are more the permanent ones. Those are structures that they are like a vault that you build with, again, wood structure, and inside of that, they're like two layers of like floors. So you go in, there is the bottom floor and there is the top floor. Each section is for one family, and there is a communal area in the middle. So like the families, they have their corner with their privacy, and then in the middle, people, they can cook, they can gather, and those structures, they're intended to live and stay for a long time. And they're made by local materials. They've been like used for, again, they've been there for thousands of years. So like the idea that these homes and structures, they've been there. The one in the bottom, those are like used a lot in like the California area. There's some in the Northwest. You can see them also on the top Northeast as well. Different type of woods, different kind of like materials, but still they're used there. In the Northwest, there's something, right now we call it the Northwest style. It's like well known in the United States, like the colors of the wood. There's a lot of cedar wood. We put wood planks as a facade, like a siding to the facade. This is how indigenous people build their homes. They were like a lot other homes called plank homes. And plank homes, they have wood siding covering the home for insulation. And they used like the part of the trees to, am I like good on time? Yes? Do I need to finish? I'm going to go fast. Okay, I'm going to finish fast. I'm going to go super fast right now. I get carried away, I'm sorry. At the bottom right, those are the Pueblo housing. These are like built in the south, southwest, like New Mexico area, Arizona area. People, they used adobe for these homes. These homes are still like the use of adobe. This is something, it's local materials. Right now, environmental architects, they want people to go back to the use of adobe. Another section of one of these homes, those are like Intuit homes. I'm gonna try. Those are the long house structures that I was talking about. And this is the map that shows the similarities between what's happening right now in Palestine and what is it right in the United States. All you remember the first map I showed you were like where all the indigenous people live. Right now, the indigenous people, they live on 2% of the total area of the United States. They are gathered, like the one at the bottom right there. This is the Navajo tribe. This is the biggest one. The rest of them, they're scattered all over, and with limited resources, they're supposed to be on a reservation that they have sovereignty and like they can own their own lives. However, when you live within like an imperial setting. You don't have resources, you don't have anything, so you can claim these lives. So it's like they are in a prison in these reservations. This is part like the reservations. Remember the map, the houses that I showed you before, that they were sustainable, amazing, beautiful housing. This is like right now what indigenous people live on, these mobile homes. That this is in Arizona. Those are the houses. This is supposed to be a place where like those Pablo housing that they were like built with adobe, but like again between them, different materials. People, they live in a very harsh way. I'm gonna come to the good part. Where is the good part? Okay. So, like when I keep talking and thinking about decolonizing architecture, and for me, like the projects that I worked on and what is decolonized architecture, I come up with questions more than answers. So right now, I'm sharing with you what I've been experiencing and seeing and learning through that journey. However, this is something I know it still needs a lot of work. It's there. It's not, I'm not thinking of decolonizing architecture as creating a new way of doing things. What I've noticed and what I've learned, that we're already doing that, but we're doing that on a small scale that people, they're still not thinking that it's an impactful, but I believe in my heart it is, and it's gonna change. So this is part of like Palestine, these pictures that I took them last week when I was in my visit here. I wanna see and sense how people live, and like really, like right now, under occupation, can we do something to claim that we are decolonizing our spaces? And yes, because when you get into a shop like this, and you go in and you talk to people and you buy stuff and you smell things, and you know that these homes, people like they're living from them and they're claiming their spaces. This is how we decolonize architecture, small step at a time. Refugee camps, when harshest life to live in a refugee camp. But right now, this is the Haitian refugee camp. When you see on the top, there are small projects of garden, roof gardens. People even in a refugee camp, and we know refugee camps, we don't want them to exist, but this is part of our story. We have refugee camps for 75 years. People, they've been living there, and generations have already built memories. So they are claiming these spaces, even in a smallest way. Yes, go back.
Just to let the audience see the transformation in urban development. We talk about refugee camps, but what we see here is informal settlements. So the transformation between refugee camps and through the past 50 years, between refugee camps. When we talk about the camp, we thought about tents. We think about something like that. But now what we see on the ground, we see informal settlements, and we see maybe the many urban problems that exist within those urban settlements.
Exactly, and that's the point of like, we've been there for 75 years, what do we need to do? So people, they start thinking and imagining and creating, even with the harshest lives for them, with limited resources, with no resources, but like their imagination, it's already there. This is Batir, the same thing, like you see people, even if like Batir has a problem with the apartheid wall going through it and people losing their lands, but like again, you see the scenery and the landscape between the new and the old. There is harmony even when it's hard, even when it's like when you cannot see it, but you need to look at it more with the lens of these people. They're surviving and they're really imagining what they can build. Like another thing of like, I know, okay, I'm gonna end up really fast. This is a project by a professor of mine, Omar Youssef. This is called the Qattan Library, and this is using modern architectural way, modern materials, but like his like inspired and using this, like this is a library, but this looks like a souk, the one that I showed you before. He's using modern way of thinking and designing. This library is in Gaza. I am gonna scroll through. This is one for an indigenous architect that I love, Chris Cornelius. This is called, not my HUD house. This is a prototype of public housing that he's creating. Still, it's not coming to life, but the idea that he's creating this, how his ancestors live, where is a place for the animals. He's using small decorations and things and art and that his ancestors, they use. Those, again, like the same idea that there is a life, you smell the spices, you see the people, this is Jerusalem, look at those umbrellas up there. People, they work to really create a space that they feel that it's home. I'm not gonna talk about this one because last picture and I'm done. Hold on. I promise. Again, those are all examples of like how people use the resources of what they can, just creating an interest for a refugee camp. Those projects that I was part of, coloring a pavement, made a space for a community to claim the space. Coloring like these columns in, again, those are like all ways of people, they're using their limited and just using their imagination to claim their spaces. And I'm stopping right here with the last one. This is a small project that I worked with young kids, making them think and imagine what home is. And like going inside that workshop that you're gonna be an architect by the end of this, but like I want you to not think of anything you know of architecture. Those are the creation of these kids. But when you look at them, each part of it, it's a story. Those flowers from a girl's grandmother's house, those windows, this tree, that apples that they're falling right there, the steps that she's taking up to go to this house. Those are the kids' imagination of claiming their own spaces. This is something that we can do as a community, like to imagine and create and build. And it's not impossible. It's like really small way of like thinking about it, but like we can shift the mindset of everybody of like how we can truly decolonize our spaces and how we can live in a place that we can claim our history and our futures as well. Thank you.